Nearly 100 migrants are rescued after almost 2 weeks at sea. What's the link between violent news events, social media, and post-traumatic stress syndrome? We'll explain. And an inspiring video of a tenacious soldier goes viral. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Tonight, a ceasefire proposal is being offered to stop the conflict in Yemen. U.S. and Saudi officials have agreed to pursue a humanitarian pause in Yemen, where fighting by Shia Houthi rebels has forced thousands of people to flee the country. After arriving in Saudi Arabia Thursday and meeting with the nation's leadership, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and Saudi Foreign Minister Abdel Al-Jubeir announced at a press conference in Riyadh that efforts are underway to force a 5-day ceasefire, to send in humanitarian aid. Secretary Kerry revealed some of the proposal's key points.
Today, we particularly welcome a new Saudi initiative to try to bring about a peaceful resolution through the announcement of their intent to establish a full 5-day renewable ceasefire and humanitarian pause. No bombing, no shooting, no movement or repositioning of troops to achieve military advantage, understanding that needs to be reached that neither party is going to exploit the humanitarian pause. So we strongly urge the Houthis and those who back them, whom we suggest use all of their influence, not to miss this major opportunity to address the needs of the Yemeni people and find a peaceful way forward in Yemen. A ceasefire has been a long-standing goal of the international community, and we deeply respect the leadership in Saudi Arabia for stepping up, taking on this initiative, and saying to the world they're prepared to meet the humanitarian needs of the people of Yemen.
Well, the United States has announced $68 million in new aid to help get food, water, shelter, and other assistance to Yemen in need. Now, for the latest on the security situation in Yemen, Zaid Al-Alaya, a Sana'a-based journalist, joins us via phone from Yemen. Now, Zaid, following the discussions today in Saudi Arabia and the proposed ceasefire, first, what do you think that will achieve in the short term?
The situation in not just in Sana'a, but in almost 18 governorates or 18 provinces out of the 22 provinces have lost most of the means of life because of the continued electricity blackouts. Large number of hospitals are doomed to close because of the lack of medications. The acute shortage in fuel have stopped many bakeries from offering bread to people, have stopped the number of hospitals from offering services to patients. Schools, universities have been closed due to the embargo that was put on Yemen in land and sea. This ceasefire, if completely achieved from both sides, because until now we didn't hear from the Houthis that they will stop or they will agree to the ceasefire, because there are still clashes and land clashes in the Saudi borders
now,
in like areas close to Najran.
Now,
this ceasefire could help provide many humanitarian and food and medical assistance to the country in the areas that are mostly affected by the war, Sana'a, Aden, Saada. And
now, Zaid, as we speak now, we know that the Houthi rebels have actually already taken over the Aden's Al-Tawahi district. Very significant move, this. Tell us why.
This is an important area. It's one of the most important areas in Aden because it contains radio, TV, intelligence office, Coast Guards, and all other buildings. This area of Al-Tawahi, part of the port of Aden, there are a large number of ships, and if there is any sort of intervention or land troops that could be sent to Aden, they can only land or enter Aden from that area, because in the last conference that was given today in Saudi Arabia by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Riyad Yassin, and Minister of Human Rights, Azzuddin Al-Asbahi. They actually have asked the international community and the KSA-led coalition to intervene and save Aden from the breaches practiced by what they call Ansar Allah or Al-Houthis in Aden. Tawahi now is under the control grip and of Al-Houthis, and it's you could say it's the heart of Aden.
Well, thank you very much. Zaid Al-Alaya is a Sanaa-based journalist. Now, to the migrant crisis. Nearly 100 migrants from Egypt, Sudan, and Somalia are the latest group rescued at sea by Italian crews while trying to reach Europe. Authorities say the migrants, including a dozen unaccompanied minors, arrived at an Italian port on the island of Sicily Wednesday night.
They said it was very rough. They were out at sea for about 12 days, they estimated, and for 2 of those days the boat stopped and was not working, and they ran out of water, and they were even drinking salt water. They weren't able to be hydrated during that time, so until the boat was going again, they were completely stopped for 2 days.
The recent surge in migrants risking their lives to reach Europe has set off a debate on how to stop the exodus. France's President François Hollande has said he wants a UN resolution authorizing the EU to destroy boats used by people smugglers to ferry thousands of migrants from North Africa to Europe. But the president of the Italian Red Cross, Francesco Rocca, warned that suggestions of bombing traffickers' boats before they are loaded with migrants is not a solution.
For us, it's not a solution, bombing the boats. This must be very clear, because the traffickers will find other routes. We cannot forget that the other route is coming from Turkey, from the Aegean Sea. Even some of them try to reach the Greek island from swimming.
Rocca says the current migrant situation is not a crisis, but in his opinion, the continuation of governments not responding to a decades-old dilemma. With no immediate plan to disrupt the flow of migrants to Europe, the EU has decided to triple search and rescue operations after being criticized over its response to the migrants' crisis. The pledge came as more migrants rescued at sea arrived in Italy, and funeral services were held for some of the 900 migrants who drowned when their ship capsized off the coast of Libya several days ago. Well, as migrants continue to die attempting to cross the Mediterranean from North Africa, Europe says it wants to stem the flow by targeting the people smugglers. But experts say such action will be difficult because of the vast web of organized crime that controls the trafficking. Henry Ridgwell is following the migrant trail through Europe and reports from Milan.
Daybreak and the smugglers' boats set off from the coast of North Africa, bound for Europe. There's no guarantee they will make it. In recent years, tens of thousands of migrants have either drowned or died from starvation or dehydration. But the boat journey is just one stage of a vast network of people trafficking that starts in the country of origin. Andrea Di Nicola, criminology professor at the University of Trento in Italy, travelled across Africa and the Middle East, interviewing those involved in the smuggling network. VOA spoke to him at Milan's central train station, a major hub for migrants.
It's a ruthless travel agency. They work in networks and they can ally among themselves. And even if we close the route from Libya, they will probably work from Tunisia or Algeria or again from Turkey. They are flexible and they change.
Europe has called for targeted action against the people smugglers. Analyst Riccardo Fabiani says that would be difficult but not impossible.
The use of drones, for example, to target people involved in the smuggling business, let's say. And on the other hand, Italy and other European countries have intelligence networks in Libya that they can rely on for this kind of information.
But the smugglers are part of international crime syndicates, earning huge sums, notes Andrea Di Nicola.
The United Nations estimate up to $10 billion. One Pakistani guy in Italy was smuggling 700 migrants and asked for each guy €7,000.
Nearby, Mohammed scans the arrivals board at Milan station. He's looking for his uncle, who fled Syria's civil war and has arrived in Europe on a trafficker's boat. Mohammed is struggling to track him down.
He was living close to the Yarmouk refugee camp. The situation there is well known. It's very difficult and dangerous. We got the news from Libya that he had departed and the boat had arrived in Europe.
Despite the links to criminal gangs, it's clear the smugglers are providing a way out for Syrians and others fleeing conflict. That's why Europe must reform its migration policy, says Di Nicola.
If you're gonna tighten Fortress Europe, probably they will increase prices. This is what these criminals told us. So in order to disorganize them, you need criminal law, you need investigation, but you also need prevention, reduction of opportunities, and of course better policies for assisting victims.
Europe is determined to tackle the traffickers, but with the rising death toll in the Mediterranean, there is a growing debate over whether Europe should open safer channels for legitimate refugees fleeing war. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, Milan, Italy.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, a closer look at some surprising triggers for PTSD. Stay with us.
From cartoon fantasy to real-world reality? Well, not quite yet, but it seems we're getting closer to flying around in our cars. The Slovakian company Aeromobil showcased its flying car recently. It's a two-seater that runs on petrol, runs on the road, and runs in the air. It has a top speed of 160 kilometers per hour on Earth and 200 kilometers per hour in the sky. Aeromobil calls their prototype the Flying Roadster, and should be for sale sometime in 2017. Aeromobil says the Flying Roadster will cost several $100,000, giving new meaning to what it means to belong to the Jetson set. For VOA's What's New, I'm Todd Grossans.
Time now for our Africa 54 Health Report, and joining us is health correspondent Lino Maduro with a look at post-traumatic stress syndrome. Lino.
While a new study suggests that viewing violent news events via social media can trigger symptoms similar to those of post-traumatic stress disorder, researchers at Britain's University of Bradford enrolled 189 men and women with an average age of 37 and exposed them to a number of videos and images of violent news events via social media and the internet, including suicide bombing. The researchers found that 22% of the participants scored highly on clinical assessments of PTSD, despite not being exposed to the events themselves. The researchers say people should be cautious about viewing such events via social media. Now, PTSD, once referred to as shell shock or battle fatigue, was first brought to public attention by war veterans, but it can result from any number of traumatic incidents. It's a debilitating mental disorder that follows experiencing or witnessing an extremely traumatic, tragic, or terrifying event, including kidnapping, rape, or torture. Post-traumatic stress disorder is prevalent around the world. Observers say in some parts of Africa, conflicts, displacements, and other disasters leave people severely traumatized, and many experience PTSD.
Bakoteli biso na ba militaire na ndako. Bandofi. Ndo akuna na salo basi babomi mobali nanga. Depuis to ya souffrance kaka.
Post-traumatic stress disorder is a cluster of symptoms that occurs in a person who has been exposed to very major trauma, which may include withdrawal from other people or flashbacks. devastating recollections of the trauma itself. In their minds, they're often stuck at the time of the trauma.
I was married to a Sudanese. After he was killed, they tortured me, almost killed me.
And observers say post-traumatic stress disorder remains unknown or underdiagnosed in many African countries. One organization has embarked on a mission to provide relief for 2 people in some African countries suffering with PTSD. Joining us to discuss this issue is David Shapiro, President of African PTSD Relief. Mr. Shapiro, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
First of all, tell us about the extent of this problem in Africa, given that your organization has been on the ground addressing it.
We estimate that as many as 100 million Africans have PTSD.
Okay, and Dr. Rosenthal, in that short video we saw, talked about some of the symptoms. How do we identify someone who is going through it?
Well, there are several tools we can use. One is we have a paper test that's being used by the Veterans Administration that says all the standard symptoms of PTSD.
Which include?
Which includes memories of the traumatic event. It includes being withdrawn. It includes being hypervigilant. Includes, and then from that develops anger, possibly violence, sometimes suicide, as an extreme.
Okay. Now, your organization is promoting, at least has been using an approach, the Transcendental Meditation, or TM. And first of all, before we talk about its efficacy, what is it exactly?
Transcendental meditation is an effortless mental technique that's been practiced by 50 years around the world by over 7 million people. And it's practiced uniformly everywhere, taught uniformly and practiced uniformly everywhere. That brings it's an effortless technique, learned very quickly, that brings a very deep level of rest and inner peace while simultaneously allowing a person to be much more effective in activity.
And it consists in just meditation. Is there something specific about this type of meditation?
Yes, this meditation is taught by a trained teacher. It's completely effortless. There are 350 peer-reviewed studies, which means in journals by experts, and have been reviewed by journals that are experts that say it's extremely beneficial.
Okay, because I was going to ask you if there is any evidence-based data that is showing its efficacy, given that that's what you have been really pushing.
Right. For post-traumatic stress disorder, we've done a number of studies in Africa. Mm-hmm. We did one study on Congolese refugees, and these refugees had severe, high level of PTSD symptoms. And what we did is we tested one group, we divided it in 2, and one group learned the Transcendental Meditation technique, and one group didn't. They were in a waitlisted group. And within 30 days, the TM group became non-symptomatic. Okay. And the control group showed no change over the entire 4-month test.
So can it be used for prevention, for example, in the case of soldiers that are preparing to go to war?
Yes, it's extremely good for prevention as well. When one practices TM, one gets a deep state of rest and releases the stresses and strains of post-traumatic stress. At the same time, that means that one is gaining more resilience. One doesn't have as much stress, one doesn't respond as strongly to a stressful or traumatic situation. Okay. So it's an excellent means for soldiers or civilians or anyone to be stronger in the face of traumatic events.
Okay, Mr. Shapiro, thank you so much. Quickly, your website?
It's www.ptsdreliefnow.org.
Great, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And that was David Shapiro, President of African PTSD Relief Now. That's Africa Health Report for today. Vincent, back to you.
Well, Lenore, thanks, and be sure to watch Lenore Madu's Health Reports every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. Well, the Goldman Environmental Prize recognizes individuals for their efforts to protect and enhance the natural environment, often at great personal risk. Among the 6 recipients of the Goldman Environmental Prize 2015 is Kenyan Phyllis Omido. She recently spoke with me about how fears that her son was poisoned from a smelting factory in Mombasa led her to fight to have the plant shut down.
My son was very little, and I used to bring him to the office a lot of times when I got the job at Metro Refinery. And after a while, about 3 months of me getting the job at Metro Refinery, he fell sick. And when we went to test him we went to hospital, they tested him for malaria, typhoid, and all was negative. And we could not put a finger to what was making him ill. That's when we tested for lead poisoning, and he had 17 parts per million of lead. And so after that, I thought, because my son had been with me in the office for very short periods, I thought about the community that stays right there.
You took some steps which became extremely, life-changing for you, I could say. Can you share that with us?
I went into the community and requested 3 mothers to give me their children to test. I went with 2 boys and 1 girl and took them to the government chemist for tests, and all of them tested positive for lead poisoning. And so I decided to talk to the directors of the smelter. I told them that I took these 3 kids for testing, and they all tested positive for lead poisoning. I proposed that they accept to relocate the smelter. We find land that had no human settlement around it, and that we designed the plant in a way that would not have adverse negative impacts on the environment and health of people. But they were not willing to listen to me. I took the results to NEMA, that is the National Environment Management Authority, and Public Health Office. And we, at that point, I went with some of the community members and we informed them of what was happening, and that we thought this was going to have very, very negative health and environment impacts, and that the plant should be relocated. That was the beginning of the struggle.
You were being persuaded, actually, not to talk so much about this.
Yes, actually, when my son fell sick, when I left hospital, when I confronted the owners and told them, you did not tell me that this thing was very dangerous, it affected my son. I had spent 210,000 Kenya shillings on the hospital bill, so they paid me back that, but in exchange they gave me documents to sign that I was never going to disclose anything or share any document about their work.
Now, what made you say, well, I don't want to keep it to myself, my son is okay, they paid my bills, let me move on with my life? Why did you say, no, I got to do more?
Even when I signed those documents, I think they knew that I was not going to keep quiet, because it was very presumptuous of them to think that by paying the bill that they made everything okay, because those human settlement there were over 3,000 human beings in the community, and I had interacted with these people. The mothers were my friends. Why would I keep quiet knowing that their children were also exposed to lead poisoning? So for me, it was an obvious choice that I had to tell them what was going on.
Well, Phyllis Omido is a Kenyan recipient of the Goldman Environmental Prize 2015. In our next segment, she will tell us how her simple request to save the children of her community got her in trouble with authorities. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, a video of an exhausted soldier inspires and goes viral. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. In Burundi, police kill and wound protesters demonstrating today against the president's bid for a 3rd term. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, the UN says that nearly 7,000 Burundians fled to the DRC amidst escalating political tensions. In Kenya, the Red Cross says some 75 people have been killed in 4 days of cattle raids and revenge attacks in the north. Finally, in Sudan, the Khartoum government expects to produce 76 tons of gold in 2015 as part of efforts to boost its economy. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. An inspiring video of a female U.S. Army captain goes viral. Captain Sarah Curd was one of 46 candidates attempting to get the Army's expert field medical badge in Fort Dix, New Jersey last month. Now, the badge is one of the hardest decorations to get with a 17% success rate. Curd had to complete the 12-mile course in under 3 hours. Now, the footage of Curd completing the course shows her struggling across the finishing line with 13 minutes to spare. At one point, she uses her gun to push herself to her feet and continue marching. This clip has been watched over 1 million times and shared 22,000 times. Well, next up, a mobile game app inspired by Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro having Mango hurled at him during a public event has been downloaded thousands of times, according to Google Play. The goal of Maduro Mango attack is to accumulate points by throwing the tropical fruit at Maduro as he scurries across the screen to a techno beat interspersed with calls by prominent opposition leader to unleash their fury. Now, the game was inspired by an incident last month in which a woman hurled a mango at Maduro's head as he drove a bus through a crowd of supporters. Well, and finally, one of Bollywood's biggest stars is in hot water. An Indian court has sentenced Bollywood star Salman Khan to 5 years in jail for killing a homeless man in 2002 hit-and-run driving incident in Mumbai. Now, the man was among 5 people who were run over in the incident. The actor was charged with culpable homicide. Khan had said his driver was behind the wheel, but the judge says the actor was driving the car and was under the influence of alcohol. As at the time, the actor was one of Bollywood's biggest stars, appearing in more than 80 Hindi language films. And that is what is trending today. Well, that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com for more news. Tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings today, Break Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. And from all of us here in Washington, have a good night.
Welcome to the Voice of America's News Words, where we teach you about words in the news.
U.S. Army Private Bradley Manning was convicted of making public the largest number of secret documents in history.
After 3 years in prison, the 25-year-old soldier and former intelligence analyst arrived at military court to hear his sentence. 35 years for committing espionage.
Espionage means to spy. It is when a country uses people to get secret military or political information about another nation.
And industrial espionage is when a company spies on another business to get plans or technical information.
Now, when you hear the word espionage, your English will be good enough to know what this news word means.